Hi everybody, we're in the cottage kitchen today. The goal is to install under cabinet lighting, and what we did is we bought these Litever kits off Amazon. They got a pretty good rating. Made in China, that's the way it goes. We bought a bunch of extra kits and we'll go through that in a few minutes, but there's a link in the description down below where you can go ahead and get these kits. So our situation here is we actually have 3 lighting zones. We've got this cabinet, and then we've got this cabinet over here, which is another lighting zone, and then we've got this third cabinet over here, which is a lighting zone. So this one over here is pretty easy because the power supplies are plug-in, 110 volt. So there's a plug behind the refrigerator, so we've got power here. So it's one power supply which will feed the lighting under here. So we'll deal with that. Over here in these 2 zones, we've got power up in this cabinet, and that's got to be divided and brought down on either side so we can get power to the lights under here. We've got some parts in the kit which will handle that. So let's go through what's in the kit here. These are kind of nice. You've got lighting strips, and they're very thin, and they have adhesive strips, and they have brackets, so you can go with a screw mount or you can go with a stick-on. We're probably going to do the stick-on, but they're very thin. You can see that, and they'll mount up in here. And this kit is pretty nice. It's got a variable intensity or dimmer switch that comes with it, and it actually has an on-off switch that comes with it, so you can kind of pick what you want. Bunch of wire restraints, stick-on wire restraints, cables, extension cords, it's all in here. They did a pretty good job with it. So power supplies, and like I said, we bought some extra parts just to have extra parts in case some of these things kind of went bad. So that's kind of what we've got going on. So the next thing we've got to do is let's take a look and see where the power is above the microwave oven, so we see what's going to go on there. I think we're going to have to drill some holes to get the cables down on either side. So we'll take a look at that next. Okay, as mentioned, the microwave situation and the cabinets left and right are going to be a little bit trickier. So we'll get Jeannie in there to get up in that cabinet above the microwave and see what's going on up there with the power. So we'll get that.
What we have here is the other outlet that Scott was mentioning, and if you can see up in here, this outlet is going to be necessary for hooking up the second and third zone, which is on either side of this microwave. A very convenient spot to have it.
Okay, let's test the light so you can see what it looks like. Jeannie's going to hook it up, and the first thing we're going to do is go out of the power supply into the switch, and then out of the switch into the light, and that hooks that all up. And then we'll go ahead and plug in the power supply, and then we'll just turn the switch on. It's a pretty nice light, it's pretty bright, and you kind of see how that works. Kind of turn that on and off a little bit if you want, just to see how that works. These lights have an inlet connector and an outlet connector, so they can be daisy chained together, which is really kind of convenient. And the kit includes extension cords if you have to span a distance. So they did a pretty nice job with giving you extra parts. You can, yeah, there's an extension cord right there. That's kind of what that looks like. So anyway, that's kind of what we've got going on right there. So we'll start installing the power supply next. Okay, we pulled the refrigerator out, and as mentioned before, we got AC power here. And here's the power supply, and I'm going to duck down. And actually, this power supply, you can see it's behind this beauty trim here, so it won't be in the way of the refrigerator. So we figure we'll stick the power supply up in this corner, and then we can feed the lighting power around like this, and we can bring the AC power down and sort of move it over behind the refrigerator and then plug it in here. So we got to put some adhesive strips on the power supply and get this stuck in. and hope that it doesn't fall off in months to come, but we'll have to see how that goes. Okay, we bought a roll of this 3M. It says 3M, but you know, believe it or not, some of this stuff is made in China, and the Chinese actually copy logos, and they can be pretty tricky with some of this stuff. But this is supposed to be a 3M product. It's VHB, which is very high bond. So I cut a chunk of tape off, and we'll put that right on the back of this power supply here. So we'll go ahead and make sure this is adhered. Okay, the next step is to go ahead and stick on the power supply behind the cabinet. Okay, we mounted the power supply with the double-sided adhesive tape, and we can actually loop the DC side over the power supply. I'm not sure how much wire we're going to need, so I put one loop in here. You can see it here. And then we used a stick-on wire tie, and when the refrigerator rolls back, it'll clear this, and then this wire will just go up here, and then we're right above the plug, so we can plug it in here. It would be nice if it was a right angle plug like this, but it isn't, so we'll kind of forgive that. But so we got the power installed, so the next thing we got to do is we got to get the lights and the switch and get everything wired up underneath the cabinet. So let's take a look at that and see how that's going to go. Okay, it'd be a good idea to test all 3 lights daisy chained together. So Jeannie's going to plug in the power supply, take care of that. And we've hooked up the lights here, all 3 of them. We've got that squared away. So we'll just turn them on, and hopefully they all 3 come on. They're pretty bright. And the other thing that's kind of nice is the cable that's coming out of the last light has got no place to go. So they did provide a little terminator. You can see that right there. They did provide a little terminator. So you can just kind of plug that on. So it looks like everything's working, which is good. So we'll shut the lights down and disconnect, and then we'll go for the install. Probably one of the more frustrating parts of this job is getting the red masking off this double-sided tape, but we did that. We figured we'll put 2 strips of double-sided tape, which are included in the kit, on each of these lights. The white masking comes off really easily, so we left that exposed. So you can see here we've got 3 lights and we've got 6 strips set up. So now we've got to actually figure out where we're going to put these lights underneath the cabinet here.
Okay, the first step is to measure the area where the lights are going to be installed, so we can know how to position the lights. Here we're getting 35 inches of surface area that we'll be able to use to install the lights. Because in checking out the lights, they're 12 inches each. So obviously we can't put them one against the other sequentially, sort of thing. So what we're planning on doing is putting one of these lights here in the center, and then the other 2 will stagger slightly behind. But we're going to make sure we put a little bit of a distance on these lights so that if we need to get in there to remove a light, replace the lights themselves if they blow out, but we're going to leave just a little distance. Again, 1 in the center, 2 staggered.
It's real easy to get this screwed up. So what we did is we kind of set it up on the countertop first to make sure we got the male and the female connections right. Because if you get one of these backwards, it's not going to reach and it's going to be stuck on. It's going to be a mess. So we'll just hook it up, and we've got a male connection here which goes into the female switch, and then another male which goes into the female light, and then again male female here, good on this, male female here, good on that, and then our terminator over here. So this all connects up properly. We'll plug it in and we'll do one last check, and it looks like it's all good. So that's working out pretty well. So we did that. I put a little piece of scotch tape, clear scotch tape on here. The cabinet doors are in the center, so I'm going to put a little mark here with my marker. And what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to put on here an R on each one of these, just so it doesn't get messed up. So this will be to the right. And when we stick these lights on, then this R goes to the right, everything goes to the right, and then we know we'll be able to hook it up when we get these things stuck on the cabinets. So the next thing we got to do is we got to figure out how to get this to be no more than 35 inches, and we got to allow a little bit on the end here for this. So I'm going to leave an inch on either side and an inch on this side. So the whole length of these strips will wind up being 35 minus 2 inches, or 33. So we got to put some marks on these lights so we know kind of where they got to go. This one we know is going to go in the center, so let's take care of that next. Okay, we put some marks on these lights. We figured out we've got 35 inches. We're going to draw it in an inch on either side to allow for the wires to come out on either side of these lights. So the total distance of the lights, as you see on the counter here, needs to be 33 inches, so that's 35 minus 2. So we take an inch and a half, you'll see a little mark here, inch and a half. We take an inch and a half off this light, and that makes this distance here 10 and a half. That's 12 minus inch and a half is 10 and a half. And we did that on both lights, so we have an effective length here of 10 and a half times 2, which is going to be 21 if we add those two together. 21 plus this 12 here brings us to 33. So this layout and these marks then are going to be correct when we go ahead and install these lights. And like I said, once you stick them on, they're not so easy to get off, so you want to make sure you don't screw it up. We check the connectors to make sure the connectors are all the right way and everything will be hooked up the right way. So we checked all of that, we powered everything up. So let's go now and actually put these up underneath the counter. Okay, what we did is we used this as a guide to give us an offset behind this molding here, and that got us parallel with that light. And then we had to set the other light back. I made this cardboard guide out of 2 inches, so we just put that up in there and then put the lights against this guide so they became parallel up in here. And then regarding the staggering, if you can see it, I put some reference marks up in here, little black reference marks right there, just to line it up with the end of the light on either side. And you can see we've got our inch of clearance over here. We've got a little bit of clearance in here to run the wire, and then we've got over here on the left, we've got, clearance in here. This is a dead wire. We're just going to put this somewhere here in the back. We're going to just put that right back there. So that's kind of how that worked. We're good. Okay, we got everything installed, and a couple of little glitches. There's some paint worn off the side of the refrigerator because we can't push the refrigerator back as far as it was in before, because this plug you can see here is not a right angle plug. So we're going to have to get a little touch-up paint, a little enamel touch-up paint, take care of that. We got a little distance in here, so we got to be careful not to drop stuff back in here. The refrigerator just can't go back as far as it was in its original form. But that said, we take a shot underneath here, and that's kind of what it looks like. We got the restraints all in there, and the wires are all hidden, power supply installed kind of nicely. And if we go ahead and back up a little bit, a nice counter light. So this is what we had before, had no counter lights. We got a ceiling light that's been turned on, but it's kind of lame. But now we've got a nice illuminated counter here, so it's illuminated. So we'll see how long they last. We got extra parts, we got extra power supply, we got some extra lights. We got extra switches, and we got a little extra parts in case this stuff fails, and it's made in China. So some of the stuff's really good. Other stuff tends to be a little bit questionable. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping this will work out really well. So that's the end of part 1. Thanks for watching, and over and out for now.